For the longest time, we've thought of Nvidia's DLSS as this really clever trick to make our games run faster. But with DLSS 5, that is all about to change big time. We're not just talking about performance anymore. We're talking about a technology that could fundamentally transform the entire visual fabric of the games we play. This isn't just another upgrade. People are calling it the next great leap in computer graphics. But to really get why this is such a massive deal, we have to start with a question that's been haunting game developers for decades. Why can't a game running in real time, right now, on your machine, look as jaw-droppingly photorealistic as a Hollywood blockbuster? Well, the answer really boils down to something called the cinematic gap. See, your game has to render a completely new frame every 16 milliseconds just to feel smooth. A single frame in a VFX-heavy movie, that can take hours to render on gigantic server farms. The brute force power to get that kind of detail in real time, it just hasn't been possible. So, to try and close that gap, Nvidia came up with DLSS. And for a long time, its story was super simple. It was all about performance. It was this clever way to use AI to squeeze out more frames per second. And man, has this technology evolved. It all kicked off back in 2018 with AI upscaling, basically using AI to render at a lower resolution and then smartly scale it up. Then in 2022, we got frame generation, which literally invented entirely new frames out of thin air to smooth things out. But 2026, that's a whole new ballgame, neural rendering. And this didn't just happen overnight, not even close. Nvidia has had a dedicated supercomputer, stuffed with thousands of GPUs, running 24/7 for 6 years straight, just learning and perfecting this tech. The sheer scale of that effort, it's just wild to think about. Which brings us right here, to today. DLSS is growing up. It's moving beyond just being a performance booster. Nvidia is actually positioning this as a paradigm shift. They're literally calling it the GPT moment for graphics. This quote from Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang, just hits the nail on the head. The goal isn't just speed anymore. It's about merging a developer's handcrafted art with generative AI to create a whole new level of realism. Just think about that. The same way models like GPT totally changed how we work with language, DLSS 5 wants to do the exact same thing for pixels. So, how in the world does this even work? This is where we get into the really cool stuff, the core technology called neural rendering. Let's break it down. Okay, so forget just stretching pixels or jamming in extra frames. Neural rendering is way smarter. It's a real-time AI model that actually understands what it's looking at. It isn't just guessing or approximating, it's actively generating photorealistic light and material effects right on top of what the game engine is already doing. The process itself is pretty mind-blowing. First, the game engine hands a basic frame over to the AI. Then, the AI model looks at it and goes, okay, that's skin, that's hair, that's a piece of fabric. Then, and this is the magic part, it uses that knowledge to generate and literally paint in these incredibly complex lighting and material effects, spitting out a brand new, hyper-realistic frame. And it does all of that inside that tiny 16 millisecond window. And we're not talking about simple shadows here. We're talking about these incredibly subtle effects that are just a nightmare to render normally. Things like subsurface scattering, that soft, translucent look of real skin where light kind of soaks into it, or the way light catches the delicate sheen of a piece of silk. The AI has been trained for years to generate these effects on the fly. So you can see the potential impact here is just enormous. This is not some little tech demo. This is a tool that is about to fundamentally reshape the look and feel of the games we all play. And believe me, the industry is paying close attention. We're seeing a massive wave of adoption from, well, basically everyone who's anyone. When you have giants like Bethesda, Ubisoft, and Capcom all jumping on board, you know this is being treated as the next big industry standard. Yeah, and this quote from Todd Howard over at Bethesda really captures why creators are so pumped about this. For developers, this means their artistic vision doesn't have to be watered down by the technical limits of real-time rendering anymore. The AI is there to help carry the load. And the best part? It's not some far-off future tech. It's coming, and it's coming soon. DLSS 5 is already set to show up in some of the most hyped-up games, including updates to huge titles like Starfield and Hogwarts Legacy, and brand new blockbusters like Assassin's Creed Shadows. But of course, a software revolution this big, well, it needs a hardware revolution to back it up. This whole new era of generative graphics is only possible because of insanely powerful new hardware, like Nvidia's Blackwell GPUs, that are built from the ground up for these kinds of massive AI jobs. And you know what's crazy? This is really just the start. The long-term vision is even more mind-bending. Nvidia is looking at a future where AI doesn't just pretty up the pixels, but actually generates entire assets from scratch. We're talking textures, objects, maybe even background characters, all just created by an AI in real time. But okay, let's be real. Whenever a powerful new AI tool like this comes along, especially one that gets its hands on art, you have to ask some pretty tough questions. And this has sparked a really fascinating and important debate about AI's role in game development. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. Is DLSS 5 a revolutionary new paintbrush for artists? Or is it more like an AI filter that could end up overwriting their vision? On one hand, Nvidia is giving developers tons of control to fine-tune the intensity and even mask out certain objects, making sure the AI is still anchored to the original art. But on the flip side, there's a real worry. Could it flatten unique art styles and lead to that generic AI-generated look we're all starting to recognize? And then you've got the cold, hard reality of the hardware. The first tech demo of this stuff was so demanding it needed two top-of-the-line RTX 5090 GPUs running at the same time, one just for the game and a whole other one just for DLSS 5. Now, Nvidia says it'll ship on a single GPU, but it just goes to show you how bleeding edge and power-hungry this all is. So here we are, standing on the edge of this completely new era. This technology is undeniably powerful. It really might close that cinematic gap for good. But as AI starts to actively repaint the worlds we play in, it leaves us with this one massive question. Is this the tool that will finally unleash the artist's vision, or is it the tool that ultimately begins to replace it?